Somebody asked me what Kyogre and Groudon would look like if they swapped colors, so today we're gonna find out. First we'll do Groudon. If it had Kyogre's colors, it would look something like this. Personally, I feel like the colors don't really work too well with Groudon's design. I don't hate it, but I feel like the red suits Groudon much more. Now let's do its primal form. I do think the blue works better with its primal form than it did its normal form. However, just like its normal form, I feel like the red fits primal Groudon's design better. It's time for Kyogre. Here's what it would look like with the Groudon's colors. I think this one looks pretty solid. I definitely like it more than Groudon with Kyogre's colors. Finally, let's do primal Kyogre. With primal Groudon's red, I think it looks pretty awesome, and I may even like it more than the blue. But what do you think? Today, we're going to be color swapping Pokemon with their regional variants. We'll start off with Sneasel. Sneasel with its Hisuian Forms colors looks pretty great. I enjoy the use of different purples a lot and think they work really well with OG Sneasel. As for its Hisuian form, this is what it would look like with the blue and red of regular Sneasel. I shouldn't be surprised the colors work so well, as both of Sneasel's forms are pretty similar in design. Next, we'll take a look at Rattata. And much like Sneasel, both forms of Rattata look pretty similar in design, so normal Rattata with black works really well, as does Alolan Rattata with purple. Last we'll do Mr. Mime, which is where things get more interesting as there's more variance between the two designs. Mr. Mime with its Galarian Forms colors looks like this, which I find really appealing. As for Galarian Mr. Mime, if it had its Cantonian colors, it would look like this, which at first I wasn't too sure how I felt about it, but now I will say that I'm definitely a fan of it. What if every Lycanroc form swapped colors? Today we're gonna find out. First we'll do its midday form. Since the midday form has a very similar structure to the dusk form, it's no surprise that the orange works very well with it. It just looks like dusk Lycanroc went and got a haircut. However, midnight Lycanroc is relatively different when it comes to design, but I still think its colors work pretty well with the midday form. Next we'll do the midnight form. I don't hate it when colored with the orange of dusk Lycanroc, but midnight Lycanroc feels very menacing with the red, and I feel like that gets lost with the orange, and I feel pretty much the same way about it when colored with midday Lycanroc's colors. And all that's left to do now is the dusk form, and as I mentioned earlier, midday Lycanroc and dusk Lycanroc look pretty similar, so just like my opinions about midday Lycanroc, I feel like dusk Lycanroc looks pretty great with the other form's colors. I think it's time we color swap Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's starter Pokemon. We'll start things off with Sprigatito. I really love the way it looks with Quaxly's colors, and when colored with Fuecoco's colors, I feel the same way. Something about this just really resonates with me. As for Fuecoco, the green of Sprigatito works really well. This is mainly due to the fact that Fuecoco's design is inspired by a pepper. I will say the eyes look a little strange on it, but I think it works well enough. And much like Sprigatito, when Fuecoco has Quaxly's colors, I think it looks pretty solid. Finally, we'll move on to Quaxly. Sprigatito's colors work pretty well with it. Again, I feel like the eye color looks a little strange, but I do think it works better here compared to what we saw with Fuecoco. And speaking of Fuecoco, I wasn't really sure how I felt about its colors on Quaxly at first, but it's definitely grown on me. I've gotten a good amount of comments asking me to color swap every Meowth form, so today that's what we're gonna be doing. With the Cantonian form, the Alolan colors look really clean, and the Galarian colors work very well with it too. As for Alolan Meowth, the only real design differences between it and Cantonian Meowth are the pose and the expression on its face. The similarities become very apparent when the Alolan form is given Cantonian Meowth's colors. And much like my feelings about the Cantonian form, I think the Galarian form's colors look great on Alolan Meowth as well. And speaking of Galarian Meowth, this is where the designs really start to differ. I'll be honest, I don't really like it with Cantonian Meowth's colors. The fur looks fine, which makes sense because this color of fur is used for shiny Galarian Meowth, but the orange just doesn't do it for me. As for the Alolan colors, I have absolutely no complaints. It's time we color swap every Hoenn starter Pokemon, starting with Trico. Mudkip's blue looks pretty dang solid with Trico, and I can say the same about Trico with Torchic's colors, which I think is a good indication of how well designed Trico really is. I really feel like it could look good no matter what colors you give it. Now, if you're ready for some atrocities, let's move on to Torchic. I think Torchic looks absolutely absolutely abysmal with Trico's colors. In my opinion, Mudkip's colors work a lot better, but it still doesn't really look all that great. And finally, we have Mudkip. Much like Trico, I find that Mudkip's design blends well with a wide variety of colors, so I really enjoy Trico's green with Mudkip. I could have made the red a little lighter, which would probably make it blend a little better, but overall, I think it looks great. But I especially like Mudkip with Torchic's colors. I generally don't like orange, but Mudkip pulls it off very well. Today, we're gonna color swap the Gen 1 starter Pokemon. We'll start off with Bulbasaur. I'm actually quite a fan of Charmander's colors on Bulbasaur, even though I'm not too fond of orange. But having it paired with the pale yellow bulb just looks really nice in my opinion. Squirtle's colors look great as well. The blue body and cream bulb complement each other perfectly and makes this my favorite out of all of these by far. Next up is Charmander. I don't have many complaints about this one. Bulbasaur's sea green is really pleasing to look at on Charmander, and so is Squirtle's blue. I will say the flame looks a little off with both of these colors, but other than that, I think they're pretty solid overall. And last we have Squirtle. Other than the green shell looking a little odd, I think Squirtle with Bulbasaur's colors looks great. And while Charmander's colors don't look awful, it isn't exactly my favorite.